Welcome to Momivate Momversations on the Win-Win Women Network. We are so grateful for this platform and the behind-the-scenes friends making it all work smoothly so we can gather to care, connect, and collaborate. Truly a win-win for us all. I'm your hostess, Reagan Barnes, mom of 8 and founder of Momivate. We are a nonprofit organization that empowers you to elevate your mothering experience. Also joining us today is Emmalou Penrod of healingyourfamilies.com. And you, Mom, you are joining us, and we are so glad to have you both. You at home and Emmalou, thank you. We welcome you into the Momivate community, or Mom Unity, as we like to say. We are moms united in our passion to create a better world for our children, with our children, and through our children. Join us and become a Mom Unity member. It's free on our website, momivate.org. Moms raise up society, one family at a time. And when you join our Mom Unity, we'll send you a free digital copy of our Smile Journal where you can keep track of what you learn from each of these Momversations and set goals to impact your personal achievement based on this educational program. To start this Momversation, let's pose the question, what do moms do? Here at Momivate, we answer with this uplifting statement. Moms raise up society. That's right, not just our own kids, but all of society, including ourselves. This acronym is jam-packed with the far-reaching impact of intentional mothers who strive to improve and progress in these areas of motherhood. We are not just chauffeurs and short order cooks. As we do bedtime routine and load after load of laundry, it makes an impact that goes beyond our homes because as moms, we are uniquely positioned to influence society one-on-one as we take on the repetitive, loving work that shapes our children, and it shapes us too. Today, with our special guest, Emmalou Penrod, we're going to focus on the relationships category of this acronym and even get more narrow and dig into a specific category of relationships. The relationship we have with the grandparents of our children. So our own parents, as well as our in-laws, can be tricky sometimes for some reason, but if we take the time to cultivate a positive relationship, it can be so beneficial to everyone involved. For us as the mom, we get extra help with raising our children, and the grandparents benefit, and our children get some extra love from that older generation. So, Emmalou, I am going to spill the beans that you are also a Win-Win Women show host with your program called Healing Your Families. I think this just gives you so much credibility for this topic in particular. And I'm excited to squeeze all the wisdom possible out of you during this time frame. So let's take a minute, though, to talk about other aspects of your life that give you that credibility also. Will you just share with us a bit about your motherhood and grandmotherhood situation?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Reagan. I've been a wife for almost 49 years, and
that's impressive to the same man.
Yes.
Wow.
And we raised 7 children together, and we have 19 grandchildren, and we have 2 great-grandchildren.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, you're even into the great grandmother part of life.
Yes, and I consider that I was able to have the best of both worlds. I was a full-time mother until
I heard you.
One. Yes, until my youngest
you said instead of stay at home, you said full-time mom. I love that distinction.
I caught myself in time.
That's great.
So I was able to do that. Then I finished my college degree. I had been working towards a degree as a school teacher. I finished that degree. I had a fascinating, wonderful 24-year career as a teacher. Loved it.
After,
Learned
so
so
you raised
much.
those children, you raised your 7 children, and then you started the 20 something years of teaching.
24. Yes, yes.
Well, Emmalou, I just really want to point that out to our mom unity, that that's a beautiful thing about motherhood. It is a career in and of itself, and you were still able to fit in a whole nother career. 20 something years is impressive. That's beautiful. What a great story.
I I am grateful that I had that time to be with my children. I'm very grateful for that. And I am grateful for what I learned as a school teacher. I also completed a Master of Arts degree. And as I approached retirement, I knew I wanted to continue supporting and strengthening families. So I started a podcast, I wrote a book, Navigating the Educational System, and started a business to support parents, especially parents of children with special needs. And I have loved the opportunity to meet other women such as yourself. I absolutely love what you're doing with Momivate. I've told all the young mothers I've met about it and recommended it. It's really beautiful. And in fact, in the interview, I love your relationships principles, and we're going to just go right through those because they all apply to
Yeah, to
relationships
that
with
relationship
grandparents.
with the grandparents. That's wonderful. Well, I just feel like everything you've described, it's funny, isn't it? Because you mentioned being a wife for 49 years, and you were able to say that and the motherhood thing and the grandmotherhood all in about 2 minutes. But that is describing years upon years of relationships, really, of getting these principles down. And maybe I appreciate you, acknowledging that as you read through our list of principles, you could see how they really do. They are kind of, thematic there and help to contribute to positive relationships. So thank you for sharing that. And I think it's awesome that you are coming today to talk about the grandmotherhood and motherhood, because you've got it from both angles, right? Like and I guess that's the beauty of grandmotherhood is you can't get there until you've passed through motherhood. So and as you mentioned, we have those guiding principles and they help us to filter out the excessive and conflicting advice that's out there. There's just so many people putting out their opinions and claiming to be experts. And yet you take one expert and they flat out say the exact opposite thing of the other expert. And so Momivate has gone through and discovered that there are true things, true statements that take into account the long-term perspective. And that is part of it's a major part of motherhood, is being able to have that long-term understanding of how our interactions with our children and our husbands and the grandparents of our children, how those have long-term repercussions, and wanting to get to that. So all right, let me go ahead and have you bring up some points that you would like to, as you help us understand how to interact appropriately with the grandparents of my children while still preserving my own sense of sovereignty, so to speak, over my children, but also benefiting from the wisdom of the previous generation.
I liked you mentioned earlier the benefits of those relationships with grandparents. I don't think there can be too many positive role models in your child's life.
That's a good point.
You know, the more positive interactions, the more adults they have supporting them, encouraging them. I love it when they have their concert at school and so many people show up to cheer them on and encourage them and 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 just love on them. So first of all, there's that advantage. And then you mentioned the wisdom. And for some, it's some help with the child care. You know,
That's
let's.
true.
And then, of course, there are the benefits to the grandparents. They love that interaction with their grandchildren. I can speak from experience there.
Yeah.
They cherish that. And the
I want to
benefits.
share a little anecdote. And this is a grandparent who was kind of adopted. So not any shared DNA with my children, but we shared a home. We lived in the basement of an elderly man who was in his 90s, and his family was concerned that he would fall and break a hip and not get any help, or but he wanted to maintain his independence. He was not at all interested in being put in a home, so to speak. So that was very beautiful for us and beneficial to us, and to Harold. Thank you, Harold, for that opportunity. But I did notice that it wasn't just helping my husband and me have a nice place to live when we had little ones, but it was beneficial to Harold. He just lit up when the little ones came in the room, and he was patient with them, and he would play with them with his cane, like just funny little things like that that added some vitality to this man's life.
Yes, yes, it benefits everyone. Now, you mentioned the boundaries, how to set this up so it's a positive experience and not contentious or disruptive. I think anytime there is a marriage, you're bringing two families, two different culturals, cultures and backgrounds, and you're combining them. And even if those two families come from a very similar culture and even the same locality, so there's a lot in common, there are still different family traditions, different ways of doing things. And if, as you join in marriage and you marry your husband's family as well as the man himself, if you go into this with an open heart and love, rather than the critical, that's not the way they do things in my family,
Yeah.
or any kind of comparing, just with an open mind, open heart, ready to learn and welcome, that makes a big difference. That comes under the contact. The very first of your relationship principles is you're going to be spending time with them. You're going to be getting to know them and building some bonds before the children come.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Spending time with them, helping, you know, I remember simple things like helping my mother-in-law can peaches, or, you know, things like that. So you're
Well, and
spending
in
that
that case,
time.
yeah, you're learning from them, but you're also just learning about them and
Yes.
discovering things that are interesting about their past, or things that might not apply right now, but you can catalog in the back of your head. And later, when some kind of behavior might come up, it can help you understand that particular behavior based on what you've learned about them, you
And
know?
you're also starting to lay the the ground rules, so to speak. The interaction,
Yeah.
the amount, you know, any relationship to thrive and grow needs healthy boundaries. So you're establishing, do they have a key to your house so they can come and go, or would you prefer that they call ahead, let you know they're coming, and the same for them? Do they want you to call before you go to visit them? You're considering, you're there's that level of respect. You're considering everyone's needs and wishes, and
We should come up with a list of questions to ask your future in-laws, and it can include things like that. How willing are you to help with childcare? Is it just once a week when we go on a date, or would you even do
and I
another
think
time a week so I can do the grocery shopping without the kids, or
this is what's
whatever.
happening after you get married. You're building that relationship. You're getting a feel for, are they okay with the last minute? Can we drop off the kids? Or, how much notice? And you're accepting that, not
Yeah.
refraining from being judgmental, just getting to know each other. And then that moves into the behavior. So you are being courteous and respectful. You're not being critical. You're not being judgmental, and that trust, as you are building that level of trust. So, and that's established when you keep your word. If you made the agreement that you're not going to just drop off the kids without warning, then you make sure you don't do that. And you've established, the joke is the parents who don't want their children to eat sugar, and the grandparents are sneaking it to them every time they can. So
Yeah.
you're establishing what your values are, and that's when it's so synergistic, so cohesive, is when you're all on the same page. You want what's best for this child, and you're in unity in terms of discipline and bedtime, and just caring for them. And
Well, and I think that it has to come from both directions, my mom lives with our family, and my kids know that if they want a treat, they just walk down the hall and visit Grammy Tammy, and they'll get plenty of not just sugar, but she does, cheese balls and like this. Sometimes I'm not a big fan of all the processed foods and everything, but I just decided, like I said, from my mom's angle, she has decided it'll just be once a day, or it'll be a reward for using the potty, or whatever little things, and for me, it's allowing at least that, and not saying, kids, quit visiting Grammy Tammy because she pumps all that stuff into you. So there's a middle point there.
grandparents naturally want to spoil their grandchildren. That's the joy of having grandchildren. But when there is that understanding, again, the focus is on what is in the child's best interest. And of course, the grandparents don't want to make their grandchildren sick. So we're in and I like the way you mentioned, the variety of treats, and the, once a day, or, as a incentive. That makes sense. You build that trust. And then there's that reflection and growth. And I want to share an anecdote, that a mistake I made with my oldest child. When we were first married, we lived by my husband's parents, and my parents were on the other side of the country. So almost all of my children's interactions were with my husband's side, those grandparents. And I remember that bothered me. I wanted my children to be close to my parents. Actually, to be completely honest, I wanted my parents to be the favorite grandparents. And let me warn you about that. That is going to undermine trust. That's, keep that open mind that there isn't a set of favorite grandparents.
And
But
that, yeah, I think that is going to be a powerful thing to teach our children, is to love even when people are different without naming a favorite. I think that's really crucial, especially because in my case, like I mentioned, my mom lives with me. And I do think there might be a little concern on the part of my mother in law that, oh, Reagan doesn't need my help because she has her mother living with her, or Reagan, her kids are going to like the grandmother who can feed them candy more often, better than the other grandmother. So we have made a conscious effort to just notice that we're different and that yes, there's different dynamics, and it's not about who's the favorite. It is about just appreciating those different situations and what different people bring to the table.
So the occasion came that my parents were going to be able to come for my son's 5th birthday. I was so excited. I was telling him every day, yes, Grandma and Grandpa are coming, and they'll get to be here for your birthday. And I was building that up so much that when we went over to my husband's parents' house, and my husband's mother said, "Oh, to my son, you have a birthday coming up. We'll need to plan something fun for that." And my little innocent 5-year-old made kind of a short, dismissive, "My other grandparents are coming. We've got it." And it was embarrassing. I was so embarrassed that he did that, but it hit me full in the face. I did that. I planted that negative thought in his mind. I didn't mean to, but it was a reminder that we need to be careful of how we talk about the grandparents. I've seen a huge difference when the parents have pictures of the grandparents out and they talk about them. Your grandparents are coming to visit you and they love you, and there's then if the grandparents live far away, then they're not strangers, and the little ones are ready to go give them a hug. So parents can do a lot to help engender that love, that bond, and 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 keeping it positive. So again, that reflection and growth, just as you're going through the years, you're looking at how is this relationship developing? Is it going the way I want? Are there some things, some miscommunications, maybe some things we need to clarify and work on a little better? And just keep
Yeah, I
it a
think that
solid,
is
happy relationship.
right. And I think you're right that it will change over the years. It's very unusual for any relationship to remain static, even positive relationships, right? And in fact, I kind of feel like they're like victims of gravity sometimes, that if you're not making the effort to move upwards, then they're just automatically going to fall backwards.
This is where we move into the principles of respect and love. You're making sure if I had been respecting and loving both sets of grandparents, I would not have done what I did. I would have been wanting to include everyone. And then also the forgiveness and compassion. And how important are those in any relationship? The wrong thing will be said. Somebody's feelings get hurt. Being able to forgive, move on, and show compassion for each other. This is huge. This helps keeping, you mentioned the maintaining your own sovereignty as the parent. Isn't this part of the healthy boundaries that you're establishing? That the grandparents have the role of supporting the decisions the parents make. I also think there needs to be the healthy boundary of they don't interfere with your marriage or your relationship with your children. And maybe how clearly that needs to be stated or established, but that's another boundary you want to keep
And I
in
would like
place.
to highlight that as a positive I've experienced personally. I do feel like my mother and my in-laws have both kind of established those boundaries themselves, and so I personally haven't felt a lot of overstepping of those boundaries. I do also think part of that comes from my willingness to learn from them. And so maybe if there was a time when they made a comment um, about my parenting or something, I decided conscientiously, really, to think it through and be like, for instance, my mother-in-law is a hugger, and I did not grow up hugging. And so I do hug my husband pretty easily. But for some reason, once my little kids are off my lap and are weaned and go off and live their own lives, it's requiring me a lot of conscientious effort to hug them regularly. And I'm so glad that my mother-in-law was willing to not just set the example, but even suggest that hugging is important for kids, even if they're 11 and no funny,
It's
or whatever.
true.
So,
I think I already told you how my mother got my oldest son night trained and taught me how to do it, and how grateful I was that she did that for me.
so that attitude of gratitude can maybe soften sometimes what otherwise might feel like an overstep of boundaries. But kind of giving that person the benefit of the doubt that they really do have, again, the best interests in mind. And if there does come a point in time where you feel like, look, that is not the way I'm going to parent my child, so you don't need to mention it anymore. I've heard other moms talk about how their in-laws think they should spank more, but this mom had decided that's not going to be part of my discipline. So being able to say that. My goodness, I feel like we have already used up this good portion of this first half hour, and we're gonna go ahead and share our screen again to talk about your website that you have called healingyourfamilies.com. So I've been to your website. You have lots of free resources for parents. They can find information on the things that you offer, like parenting classes. Would you like to tell a little bit about those things?
Well, what I'm really proud of, well, in addition to Win-Win Women, I absolutely love this platform. I love having my weekly show, but I've
Tell
also
us when
been
that is. When's your show?
okay. It's on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific time,
Okay.
and that's when children are coming home from school. But you can watch the recordings, and in the past several weeks, I've been posting just these 1 minute parenting tips on social media. And then, of course, they're all collected on my YouTube channel. And that's just search for my name, Emmalou Penrod. And you can see all of the parenting tips. And they are on my website as blogs on different topics. Just,
Healingyourfamilies.com.
yeah, healingyourfamilies.com. And sign up for my newsletter, and I'll be sending regularly more tips and ideas and blogs. And again, my background in education was as a special education teacher, so I've seen that extra effort that parents of a special needs child go through, and my heart goes out to them, and I want to support them in any way I can.
Fantastic. I'm so glad we've had this chance to talk. And I want to encourage you, our viewers, to take a moment right now to write down some of the key points that stuck out to you personally. Our lives are kind of like this set of gears, and writing things down, whether in the digital smile journal that we can send you if you sign up for our Momunity, or just in a notebook. That is like the first gear, and it sets these other things into motion. So write it down, make an action plan so that it can have impact in your life that it's meant to have. Again, this half hour has gone by so fast. What a delightful time we've had during this Momversation. Thank you, Emmalou, so much for joining us and sharing such valuable insights about relationships with the grandparents of our children and how beneficial that can be when we have the right boundaries set up. And thank you for joining us at home and gaining those valuable insights. Be sure to join us again next week. Our guest will be Julie Lee, and she'll guide us in our relationships with other mothers and how this can help us to elevate our mothering experience. It's time to end our recording and start our live interaction with our viewers. If you've watched this as a recording, thank you for watching, and be sure to catch our show live every Saturday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. And you can participate also in the second half hour where we continue the conversation directly with you, unrecorded. We want to include you in the discussion. That's how Win-Win Women TV is unique. We care, we connect, we collaborate.